Welcome back to Voices in Mystery. I'm Nancy Carlson. With me now is Wilfred Bereswill, whom I've never interviewed before. Why? Because you are a recent author. You started about 4 years ago, right?
4 years ago, when I was 49 years old.
What happened?
I was challenged to write by my aunt, and I was doing some travel in China at the time, and I kind of put this whole thing together in my head and just decided that I wanted to show my daughters that you could do anything you want any time of your life.
That's wonderful. So you have a published book, A Reason for Dying, and it says in your biography that it is not somehow connected to the natural gas industry. So what's going on in your book?
Well, think of the movie Outbreak meets the TV series 24.
Okay.
It's about a deadly natural viral outbreak that's mistaken for an act of terrorism. I would imagine, if you would, 20 to 30 or 40 cases of a disease like anthrax to hit one little small community hospital all at once. In our paranoid post 9/11 state, we would probably have a hard time believing that it's not an act of terrorism. So natural gas plays a part of it. Actually, the whole premise behind it is that the dinosaurs were decimated by viruses way back when, and they lay dormant underneath the ground. And when we drill for natural gas in those areas, they come back to haunt us.
I see. And you said anthrax. What's the connection there between the story and
Well, anthrax is one of those things. There's actually a mummified dinosaur that's found up in the same region of near Montana where this book takes place, called Leonardo. Leonardo was actually found with contents of its stomach still intact. And they found spores from plants and animals that it had eaten just before it died. So that's kind of the premise of the whole thing. Anthrax is a spore, and viruses lay dormant, and they can come back under certain circumstances. So a friend of mine that's a paleontologist told me, well, you know, the premise for your book is a lot more plausible than Jurassic Park, and we all know how well that did.
Yes, it did. I hope your book does that well. You live in the St. Louis area.
I do.
And you're an engineer there for a corporation.
That's right.
And you just decided to become a writer as well. So when on earth do you write?
I don't sleep a lot when I'm actively writing. Yeah, for about 6 months when I actually wrote the first draft, I was writing between 9 o'clock and midnight. And then I'd wake up, go to bed with my mind fully occupied with things, the voices in our heads that we hear as authors, and wake up in the morning at 5:30 and do it all over again. So it was a tough time, but I forged through, and things are a little easier on the second book.
Which is the name again?
The name of the second book is going to be A Reason for Terror.
Reason for Terror.
It's the second in the series for Laura Daniels.
All right, tell us more about Laura.
Well, Laura is an FBI agent, and she was actually involved in the first case in the book. She's involved in the anthrax letter investigation, which is the Amerithrax. And there's an interesting connection there to something else. But she fails in that, and she's cast aside to the Seattle field office. So now her career's on the line. And when she's sent to track down some missing radiation devices, she stumbles upon the site where this deadly virus viral actions taking place, and she winds up finding out that the situation is far more deadly than she anticipated, and the answers she gets are the last thing on earth she'd expect.
Now, some of this, of what you say, actually sounds like things that have happened in the news, and so did you write this after all this unfolded in the news, or is it?
Actually, the first 2 or 3 or 4 chapters were written early in 2003, when the anthrax letter investigation called Amerithrax was unsolved.
Okay.
And the reason I wanted it that way is because I wanted Laura Daniels to fail. Well, 3 weeks after my book hit the shelves, there has been a news article about a Dr. Ivins, Bruce Ivins,
sure.
who is now, I guess he committed suicide as the FBI was closing in on him as the primary suspect in the Amerithrax case. Well, Dr. Ivins lived in Frederick, Maryland, He was an Army doctor for the United States Army Research Institute for Infectious Diseases called USAMRIID at Fort Detrick. In my book, in the second chapter, takes place at Frederick, Maryland, and it's a little situation between a terrorist and an Army doctor who works for USAMRIID.
Wow, why didn't they just read your book?
Well, that's what I thought. I thought it was odd that 2 weeks after my book hit the shelves that they solved the case.
Wow, that is really, you were prescient, I guess, in the book, or else you knew more than the FBI did.
I think it's just all that good research that we do.
Oh, that is great. Do you do most of your research by computer?
I do a lot of it by computer, but I'm a hands-on guy. I got kicked out of a casino 2 weeks ago doing a little too close research on their surveillance systems.
Oh, dear.
So,
well, you like to look up, and they wondered what you were...
That's exactly right. I was looking up at all the domes on the ceiling and started asking a question of a dealer, and suddenly I found myself being taken to a back room where I met the chief of surveillance, and he didn't take kindly to my moseying around, and he did answer some questions in an offhanded way before they escorted me out.
That's nice. And did he believe you that you were a mystery?
Well, I gave him my business card, so he must have.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. You live in a household of women?
I do.
Your bio says. So do you know more about women than the average fella does, do you suppose?
I think I know a lot about women. I coach girls soccer, and that's why I chose, I think, of a female protagonist. I think I was able to do her justice, or at least I hope I was.
And have women responded yet to?
They have. One of my readers said she's an interesting mix. Laura Daniels is an interesting mix of Dirty Harry and Daddy's Girl. And that's kind of what I was shooting for.
Yeah.
You know, and living in the household of women, all I need to do is keep quiet and observe, and I get plenty of stuff to write about.
I bet. Now, you live in a wonderful old city, a river city that has some manufacturers and ball teams that are really legends. So are you tempted to write about breweries and Clydesdales and St. Louis Cardinals and such?
I deliberately stayed away from St. Louis. I think in some cases authors that write about their hometown maybe put too many details and too many things that they're familiar with, and I wanted to stay away from that. I thought it was better for me to do the research and then to be so intimately familiar that I would make it too close to only those people in St. Louis.
So will you purposefully travel then to other places to find locales for your next novels?
Yeah, actually I travel a lot for business anyway. I'm working for the company I work for, and I've been to China quite a bit, and which some of this came from my time there during SARS. That's kind of where the inspiration for this came about.
Sure. Did you wear a mask?
I did not, but we took plenty of ibuprofen before we went to the airport every time so we didn't get hit with the thermal scanners.
Good.
Last thing we wanted to do was get yanked out of line and put into a room full of sick Chinese people.
All right. Well, I'm glad that your daily job gives you ideas for your books, because we want you to keep writing them.
Mm-hmm.
For today, the people should look at A Reason for Dying, which we're showing you, and then we want to invite you back often to come on Voices and Mysteries. We've been talking to Wilfred Bereswill, and he's from the St. Louis area, author of A Reason for Dying. It's a really good book, so pick it up, and thanks for being with us.
Well, thank you very much, Nancy. It's a pleasure to be here.